Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Building with Peace, an interview series showcasing modern mystery school initiates from all walks of life, all over the world, who are working for the same mission of building world peace. I am your host, Ling. I am a guide, teacher, and a ritual master in the ancient lineage of King Solomon through the modern mystery school. And today I have with me a fellow initiate, Vanessa Nova, and I'm super excited to see or to hear what story she has to share. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Ling. So good to be here with you.
Thank you for coming on, and I look forward to seeing what we're gonna talk about. Could you
Me too.
could you introduce yourself a little bit to the viewers and perhaps the listeners?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I'm Vanessa Nova, and I am a guide and a ritual master and a Kabbalist and all of these long titles that we have in the mystery school. And I'm a multi-hyphenate and multi-passionate artist and entrepreneur and creator. So titles aren't something I really love, but some of them are sacred and we've earned them. So definitely I am a guide and a third step ritual master in the lineage of King Solomon with the Modern Mystery School. So that's kind of one badge that I love to wear and I'm proud to wear.
Thank you, Vanessa. So before I'd love to hear what you have to share. Before that, somebody who may be watching this may be their first Building World Peace video or episode, and they may not know what the modern mystery school is. So, Vanessa, could you explain to them what is the modern mystery school, and also share with us what is it to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really excited to share about the Modern Mystery School because it's been a secret for thousands of years. So the secret's out, and the Modern Mystery School is the only mystery school tradition and lineage that is open to the public on the planet today. It's the only one that is available and has direct lineage back to true mystery school tradition. And mystery school is a way to know yourself, and it is deep metaphysical teachings that allow us to awaken to our divinity. And these teachings have been around for thousands of years, but prior to our modern times, they were only available to certain few individuals. So our school is the only lineage that's actually an authentic mystery school tradition. And for me, it's really been an awakening to my own magic and to my own power and to my own creativity. And it's a training organization, but it's so much more than that. It's a community, it's a family, and it's a tradition that's very sacred and ancient.
And I myself, have been in the school for a few years and have definitely witnessed and experienced the magic and that unity. I'm actually staying here with some of my soul sisters from the mystery school in Brazil, and it has just been nothing short of amazing. So I totally relate to what you shared, and I'm excited. Vanessa, could you share with us your story of how you end up, how you get to where you are right now?
Thank you. Yeah. Well, my first exposure to the mystery school was in Seattle, and it was in the early 2000s, around 2003 and 2004. I was involved in a performance and multimedia kind of events group. It was like these amazing parties with DJs and dancing and art installations, and it was this beautiful community that I landed in. And so I immediately got involved in that community performance and just enjoying the connections that I was making there. But I didn't know at the time that some of the people that were producing the events at the Oracle gatherings, which is what it was called, were involved in the mystery school already. And the themes of the parties, which were a series of parties, were archetypes. And one of the archetypes was mystery school. And at that time, Dr. Teresa Bullard, who is also one of our international instructors in the school, she has her own TV show now and has written many books. At that time, she had heard about the Oracle gatherings and heard that there was an event called the Mystery School or Mystery School. And so she approached some of the leaders of that organization and said, "Hey, you guys, did you know that the mystery school is actually a real thing? Like I can, initiate you and bring you into the mystery school tradition. Is that something that you're interested in?" And so they had gotten involved in what we now know as the modern mystery school, and they were working on incorporating that into their events. So I had already been involved, and so my first exposure to it was at a party, and I was performing in that party, and that party was called Space Traveler. And so this is a crazy story, but anyway, at this party, Space Traveler, that was held in an empty grocery store. So there was like an empty grocery store where this like a warehouse where they were holding this event, and after the event and the performance, they held what was called a galactic activation. And at the time, I had already been reading a lot about galactic beings, and I had been researching on my own. Like I had already been on my spiritual journey, um, kind of just doing my own self study and self research. And I had already been exposed to the idea of extraterrestrial beings, galactic beings, channeling, all of these weird things I was already into. So when I heard about this opportunity to do a galactic activation, I said yes. And so that was my first exposure to the mystery school. That was in 2004. So I had my galactic activation at that event in a grocery store where, the some of the teachers and leaders of the mystery school were there, and there was probably 100 or so people there. And what was so interesting was that I, at the time, had that activation, which we know is a very powerful activation, but I didn't notice anything. I didn't really feel anything. I didn't notice anything. And so I kind of just went about my life. So this is 2004. So I just went about my life. And at that time, I was working in retail. I was working a couple of different jobs, and I was just trying to make ends meet. And it wasn't really that I hated my job at the time. Like I didn't hate my jobs. It was just like a hustle. I was in my 20s. I was, I had the energy to kind of go from job to job. And I already knew that I wanted to be a healer. And I already knew that I had a big role to play in the world, and that involved something creative, and that involved something with spirituality and with healing. But the thing was, Ling, that I already thought that I knew the answers. I had kind of a full cup. So I had read a lot of new age books, and I had just already done my studies that were my own research. So it was a lot of books on the bookshelf, and I had already kind of gone to massage school. I'd started to explore a lot of different things because I was trying to piece it together. And it wasn't that I hated my job per se, or like, but I also just didn't like working in what we call the matrix. Like it just felt like a rat race. It felt like I wasn't in alignment with who I really was. And it wasn't that I didn't like the environment or the work. It was just that I felt really deeply inside that there was something that wasn't being fulfilled. Like it wasn't who I really am on a deeper level. So anyway, at the time, that's what I was doing. I was working in retail. I was working in a bar. There was like all this different kinds of culture that I was involved in, creative communities, but I was feeling unfulfilled. So several years went by after the galactic activation, and I started shifting. I started noticing that, even the more I progressed in my life, it felt like actually I was really stuck, like I wasn't really moving anywhere. And it wasn't until about 2007 that I started to realize that I was stuck. And I went through a breakup. And at that time, that was a breakup where I was trying to push more into my own spiritual awakening. And I was trying to push more into my purpose. And the person I was with was not really into that. So I knew that it was over and I broke up with this person and it was sad. But it really allowed me to see, okay, like what am I doing with my life? What, I'm as each year passes, I'm not getting more in alignment with my purpose and something is going on here. So I looked around me in that community and like I said, these people that I was around in the community were involved in the mystery school. And I noticed that there was something about them that was different. Like they were magical. I couldn't put my finger on it. The way they were showing up in the world was a different way. Like there was something I couldn't describe it. And they were creating in the world. They had this energy about them. And I knew that I wanted it. And because of that breakup, there was like this space that was created. And I realized, okay, I want to know what that magic is. I want to know what that special something is that these people are showing up with that I don't have. Like, I don't have it. I want it. So I finally decided to take this class that was called Empower Thyself. And so in that class, everything that I had already researched, all of my self studies and with new age spiritual books and channeling and all of these things that I had kind of downloaded mentally and they were concepts to me, they finally became real. They became real in my body and they became real in my life, and I could actually put them into action. So, in that class, all of these concepts that were presented became something that came together in a completely new way. And when I received my initiation, which is like a ceremony, in that moment of the ceremony, I felt and immediately knew when I saw like it's a knighting ceremony. So there's a sword that's involved. And when I saw the sword come down, I knew in that moment this is what I'm here to do, or at least part of it, a big part of it. And so that's why I'm here today because everything in that moment was very clear. And it took me many years and progression and studying within the school, lots of initiations to get to where I am today. But it started, one with a galactic activation, and two with me deciding that I was ready for more. I had to decide for myself that there was something more than what I had already discovered and learned myself.
Wow, thank you for for the stories. I love that. I didn't know that Divina Three, Dr. Theresa Bullard, that was a connection between you and her. Yeah, that's so cool. And something that came up when I was listening to you is, and I usually don't think about this, but it came up was that how we both, I mean, I know you're Filipina and
Hmm.
Vietnamese, so we'll both come from like Asian backgrounds, but in a way,
Yeah.
somehow like come from Asia, like from an Asian background, but I feel like our approach in our early 20s was so different. Our approach to life. I was definitely a lot more traditional. Whatever was like the Asian approved way of life. I went to college. I got did computer science. Got a computer science job. Versus you, it's amazing. And I thought that was so cool that first of all we end up in the same place, like in the same school, working on the same thing. But also, I love that it's kind of showing the multifacets, the diversity within any community. Um, yeah, I wonder, was it an issue, being Asian and kind of being into all these things, and also, yeah, being in your early 20s?
I would love to talk about that. Yeah, that's an interesting topic. Yes. So, you know, in Asian culture, we have to do what our parents want us to do. And traditionally, that's be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, go to school, get good grades. And I definitely had that conditioning. I definitely had that pressure put upon me. And it's interesting because, I grew up in I grew up getting good grades. I was a smart kid. I did well in school, but I was bored. And I didn't want to be put in a box. And so I had that dichotomy of like, okay, I understand that this is what I'm supposed to be, but this is what I feel like I am inside. And so it was really interesting to have that journey because being the smart kid and, I knew that I had the ability to be a high performer and get good grades, but I was bored. Like the structures of society were not fulfilling to me, and I knew that. And I accepted that. So I did try to appease my parents, and I did have a very high interest in science. So I did go to college with a pre-med major. I wanted to be a neuroscientist. I wanted to understand human potential. So I really thought that that was going to be my direction. And it's so interesting because, in our society, we are expected to know what we want to do with our lives and to choose our education at such an early age, and we don't know ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't know what our gifts are. Those are not things that are encouraged for us to explore. At least in our school system currently, and the school system that I grew up in, it's not encouraged. And art and expression aren't always encouraged, and they're not nourished. So I grew up with that, but I definitely grew up um, with the opportunity to nourish those sides of myself. So when I went to college as, pre-med, and I, thought, okay, man, I'm gonna get like a PhD, or I'm gonna get a doctorate, or I'm gonna, go into medicine or research, because I had the capacity for it. So imagine that I was, at University of California, Irvine, and that's like we call it the University of Chinese Immigrants, like because it's so many Asian people, right? It's I was at that school and I was pre-med, and I started off on my journey and went to my first biology class, and I was like, this is not it. This is not who I am. And I immediately felt energetically, and at the time I didn't really understand energetically, but I just knew that it wasn't the path, and I bolted out of there. It was like I think I only went to one day of biology, and I would just like went straight to the office and said I want to change my major. So I auditioned, which you have to audition, you have to have some level of talent to be able to go into an arts program. So I auditioned for dance, and I auditioned for theater, and I changed my major to double major in theater and dance. And can you imagine what my Filipino immigrant parents thought of that? It was like the end of the world. So, and I had been conditioned my whole life, like art is not, this is great for you to do, but you need to have something to fall back on, right? Like this is like the script. So I had to overcome a lot of that conditioning. Even in my adult life, I can still hear those voices. But now I rely on my creativity. My creativity is my superpower. It's what allows us to really understand our godhood. Is like we're here to be creators. So over the years, I've learned to overcome that idea of having to please my parents. Like I love my parents and I have a great relationship with them now, and my both of my parents have over the years they have started to warm up to what I do and all the weird things that I'm into, and my parents are now initiated. So, that's a win for me, and they still think I'm weird, but they love me and I love them. And so that's an interesting thing 'cause I think so many people struggle with allowing themselves to let their expression and their soul be what they guide their life with. And that causes a lot of suffering and it causes a lot of pain because that's who we are.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, wow, that is amazing, and I'm so happy that you had that moment in college and you just kind of stood up and in a way stood up for yourself and be like, nope, I'm out of here. That's so cool, and I truly hope more and more people will have that moment. Not just Asian, but anyone, right? Because we all have certain
Right.
kinds of pressure from our parents, from society. That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I love where I come from. I think there's a lot of beauty in the cultures, Vietnamese culture to be specific. But definitely the survival, versus thriving like that survival era, I guess, is ready to be gone.
Right. Yeah, there's a cultural programming about, what we're supposed to be or, put you in a box like, our generation, the people are waking up. And we'll get to this. We're talking about world peace, but people are waking up and they're realizing that life is so much more than just paying the bills and having some kind of piece of paper that says that you did this schooling and then kind of having some kind of career that's going to give you retirement and a pension. There's so much more to life than that. And we deserve that. We deserve to explore and to express who we really are and to create a life from our gifts.
That's really cool. Yeah. Well, you did mention the topic, which is world peace. So I want to ask you, Vanessa. So, what does world peace looks like to you?
I've been thinking about this for a really long time, what world peace looks like to me, because I think even as a young child, like I'll go back to I'll tell a story. When I was growing up, I'm Filipino American. Most Filipinos are Catholic. I went to Catholic school and 12 years of Catholic school. But because I went to Jewish preschool, my parents wanted me to have a private school preschool, so they sent me to Jewish preschool, not thinking, okay, yeah, this is going to be a conflict of interest. But so they sent me to Jewish preschool, and so I'm here. I am 4 years old, and I'm like going to Sunday school for Catholic school, and Catholics and Jewish religion believe completely two different things about life, the afterlife, the Christ, the coming of the Messiah. Like there's very conflicting beliefs. And so from a young age, I didn't understand why people believe things that are so different. And that, for thousands of years, wars have been even fought because of religious reasons or differences. And so I was looking for the underlying connections my whole life. I was looking to understand what is a deeper thread that connects us all as humans, because how can it be that this Filipino American little girl surrounded by, Jewish Americans, like I didn't notice that I was different. I didn't notice that I was different at all. Like to me, I was a child having fun, and all these other children were, my friends. And so I grew up that whole time wondering, like, how can we have that connection? And really, like, what I see, if like, leading back to the question, what is world peace to me? World peace to me is when we can all see each other as one. And we can see that our differences are rich and beautiful and amazing, but we can see that together, like we're all in this together. And we can see each other not just as humans, but as, God and goddess beings. And we're all sharing this planet together. So even beyond that, like when we can see each other as gods and goddesses and respect and love one another as ourselves, because it's pretty simple. Like treat others as you would like to be treated. That's like the golden rule, and that's a common thread in all religions. But why do we not do that? Why do we not do that? So when we can do that, to see each other and respect and love one another, as gods and goddesses. And even beyond that, we can see that there are other beings on the planet. There's animals, there's plants, there's crystals that are beings. And there's even other races that are beyond humans that we share this planet with that, I believe in fairies and elves and unicorns and dragons and mermaids. Like I'm not shy about that. These are experiences and beings that I've had experiences with. Nobody can take that from me. So, I'm going to go out on a limb and say like, yes, these are my brothers and sisters. I believe in them because I know there are people out there that do believe in them and they're afraid to admit it. So, I it's okay to admit that because also world peace means that we see this whole planet and all the living beings on this planet as we're all here together and we're all here sharing this existence. And so when we can actually realize that we're only this speck, this planet is like this speck in the universe, that we're not the only ones and that there are so many other beings that we share this universe with. To me, that's even part of world peace.
There's one thing I want to bring up that may be helpful for the viewers at this point is in all this series, in all these interviews that we bring up, sometimes there may be things that that the guest or myself say that you may be like, I don't agree with, or that is weird, that is ridiculous, and that's totally okay. Because the purpose of this interview series is to help bring in awareness, to help broaden your awareness of what is possible. Like many of you may not believe that world peace is possible, but here there are so many people that have experienced it, which I will ask you, Vanessa, about, and that are working for it, right? So it's okay to not agree with somebody, and that actually is part of my vision for world peace too. Like, it's okay if you don't agree with somebody, but hey, let's keep an open mind and just see what they have to say. And just because somebody says something, it doesn't mean that you have to believe in it, or doesn't mean that you have to go and destroy what they believe in. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Vanessa, when was the first time that you realized world peace was possible?
I don't think I had a defining moment that you know, there wasn't like a defining moment for me, but definitely, I've been in this school since 2007 was my initiation. So 14 years now. And I grew up in this school. I grew up working towards our common mission of the school, which is world peace. And the more I study, the more I go deeper. And I've lived in a lot of different places. I've lived in Seattle and Southern California, and I've lived in South Africa, and I lived in Texas, and I've lived in a lot of different communities within the mystery school and at different phases of growth. And always the thing that drove me was this mission of Shambhala, or world peace. And in order for me to understand that, I had to, do these experiments of creating in community and working with other people and trying to understand how we could work together, and how we could create together. Because that's something that's important to me. I'm really passionate about creating, co-creating, and being in community because everybody has different gifts, everybody has different skills. But when we come together, we can create so much more. And we can go farther, we can go faster when we create together in a team. And that doesn't mean like each person, you know, can't stand on their own. Like we all have to stand individually as sovereign beings and know who we are and then create together. But over the years and working with different communities and building different businesses and like I had a center in South Africa that I worked with, and I had a center in Texas that I worked with, and I'm building a new center here in San Diego, California now. So over the years, I've seen these moments where there's just a beautiful synergy of creating together. And I've seen it, in Northern California community when we all get together, or at different programs where we all get together and there's a lot to be done. And it seems like it's impossible. The amount of things that need to happen and the amount of energy that needs to be built, it seems impossible. But every time we pull it off, it's like magic. And that to me proves to me that world peace is possible, because if we look at the world right now, there's so much separation, there is so much polarized opinions and ideas, and because everybody has their own perspective. And just because you think that your own perspective is true, like somebody else's perspective could be true, but there is like a greater truth and a greater perspective if you can zoom out and see the bigger picture. So, you know, I, with all of my experiences, seeing that the impossible is possible, I can look at the world and have hope. And I can look at, all of the suffering that we've been through, like the craziness with COVID. I can see a deeper, I can zoom out and I can see that it's possible because I'm not looking at the individual parts. I'm looking at something that's much, much greater. And again, like we're this blip on a screen in, all of history and time. Like we have this like tiny moment in time, and we're this tiny speck in the universe floating on this little planet. Like if you can have that perspective, you can actually shift the way you view yourself, the way you view the world and what's possible. And so really the magic of this school and the lineage is like what I sink my hope into. And that's really what it's about, is about having hope. And, the tools of the mystery school have given me that hope.
That's cool. The visual, like you were talking about, of like we being tiny speck and a tiny planet in the grand universe. I'm like, oh, if that's the case, then of course, just many different tiny specks being in harmony, being in peace with each other, that's totally possible. Right?
Of course it's possible.
Yeah, and I share with you the same thing about, like, sometimes. So I mean, I haven't. You definitely have so much more experience in this than me, but just initiates getting together and helping build program, help everyone finding their own piece. Like we have a designer who's really good at like making beauty stuff, right? So she goes and she makes the altar, and then we have all the strong men setting the chair, so everyone just like finds what it is that they're good at, what it is that they can contribute, and then just together somehow things happen in the best way. So yeah, I can relate, and I hope a lot of our viewers will be able to relate to that too at some point. It doesn't have to be in the mission school, but just in any community, right? Seeing people
Right.
getting together and working together on a common goal.
In the grand scheme of the world, right? If we think about what you just said about people coming to a situation and finding what they can contribute and allowing themselves to explore what they're good at, and then ultimately each person has a key, each person has a piece. And so if we take that analogy and we apply it to world peace, and we apply it to the world and what is needed in the world today, like if you just allow yourself to explore your joy, your gifts, that's going to lead you to what piece you have to contribute in the world. And when each person is contributing their special spark, their special gift, that's world peace, because we can do it together. But we have to overcome, all of this conditioning, like we were talking about before, where people, for an entire lifetime, perhaps, they put themselves into a box, and they put themselves in the situation where they have to, of course, like you have to cope, you have to survive. We have different kinds of traumas that we have in our lives, So we have to cope and we put these masks on, we put ourselves in these boxes, we put on these jackets and like these shackles that, at the time they serve their purpose, but they aren't who we really are. So part of this mystery school journey is know thyself, and it's really about examining, okay, do I need this? Is this me? Okay, well, actually, that served its purpose. I'm going to take that off so that something else can be revealed. And perhaps it's like some other gift that you left behind when you were a child or when you went to college, where you said, okay, well, I was told that I have to be a good girl. I have to have good grades. I have to put myself in this box so that I can be loved, so that I can be accepted. But when we start to realize that those decisions were made and you actually start to say, oh, well, this is a beautiful part of me that I want to explore. And I made that decision and I forgive myself and I forgive the situation that, created, some kind of decision that was a mask or that wasn't me. And you say, okay, I love myself enough to explore something else now and step into this other thing. And like that's what I did in that moment. Thank God that I decided to not go into the science field.
So Vanessa, we well, I mean, I would, yeah, I definitely would talk to you more after this recording. But we have to wrap up. It is time. And I want to ask you a final question for those, for the viewers, the listeners who watch this, listen to this, and they absolutely love you and they are curious about working with you, maybe interested if they live right now like in SoCal or just anywhere. How can they find you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, well, my website is vanessanova.net. That's my personal website. I have a brand new center with a fellow guide, Carla Clark, and that's in San Diego, California. And so I do initiation and classes and healing work there. And the website for that is soulsciencesd.com. The center is called Soul Science Spiritual Center. You can find me, especially on Instagram. I love Instagram. Vanessa Nova at Vanessa Nova is where you can find me on Instagram.
Cool. So, well, thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your time. And I'm excited. Will I see you in Toronto?
Perhaps. When we get the emails for the new curriculum coming out and the new programs, it's always like, all right, what can I sign up for? And I have a lot of projects going on right now, but it's always really important to be there. So it's always something to weigh whether I can commit to the time, but it's always valuable to go.
Yeah, cool. Well, I hope I'll see you online, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon at some point.
Thanks so much for having me, Ling. It's been wonderful to hang out with you and to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. And goodbye then, and goodbye all the viewers
Bye,
too.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much.